profit per acquisition, like you mentioned earlier, PPA is my favorite business math formula that exists.
You collect some information, you need to take the time to look at the information, and then you need to generate what you want to investigate from there and what you're going to manipulate. So today on Beyond the Pump, we're going to actually bring you a case study. And this is something we think is really important because obviously the best way to learn is to learn from the mistakes of others, ideally. And let's be honest, we've all made a lot of mistakes. So we put together this vignette, this hypothetical situation that Steve is going to walk us through one of the principles that he loves and finds absolutely essential, which is the PPA model. And so in today's specific case study, we have a formerly wildly successful company, had its comeuppance during some austere times, was doing really well, and in the most recent year had a very challenging fiscal position, meaning basically usually we'll say like 8-figure earning revenue kind of company, and then the year that they're looking at right now, they're already $500,000 in the hole, about halfway through.
Steve, we'll give it solid numbers. So in 1 year, they did $1 million in top line revenue, and they took home like $400,000 in profits. And now they're losing $40,000, and they're already halfway through the year. So they've gone from plus 400K now down to negative 40, and obviously trajectory is showing things are continuing in a bad direction. So
correct. Yep. So then where do we even start with that? Because obviously, our listeners, they may not have that experience, but at some point there always is an inflection point where there's a pullback. You'll grow, you might struggle to get to that point. You do it long enough, your growth will kind of cap, and then usually there's either a downtrend or a massive uptrend in my experience in it. I don't know, Steve, have you seen that as well, or is that kind of like some people just hang
typically
out
in smaller entrepreneurial businesses, you have these waves of ups and downs. It's just because generally speaking, as an entrepreneur, as a small company, you don't possess the wide variety of skill sets to grow and keep things stable and then rebuild like a better, bigger, more solid foundation to then set yourself up for grow and then stabilize again and just repeat that process. Because let's be honest, somebody who can go out and grow something, market, sales, like really focused, is not necessarily going to be the best on the operational side of things of creating those foundations that stop that slide back. And frankly, I mean, let's be honest, it's not as fun, it's not as sexy, but that's why we have the ups and the downs in business, because one person usually isn't good at everything. So yeah, it is not abnormal to see, let me do $1 million this year, and then all of a sudden next year, my top line revenues are like maybe 400K at best, and now I'm losing money. That is a very common thing. I mean, for me to grow all my brick and mortar businesses that I had, my gyms, all but one that I added to my portfolio. So I started 3 from scratch out of 17. The other 14, I bought them all from somebody, and the business was effectively failing. And through that and the purchasing idea of things, in total, those 14 businesses, I think I laid out a total of something like $20,000 in cash to buy them all. I effectively was willing to take on their future debt. So somebody had bought personal training and they still had to be trained out, or somebody had a bunch of massage sessions left over and those had to be fulfilled on. So there was a debt, so to speak, that I was paying or absolving somebody for, not to mention I commit to paying your lease and all those things. But I was able to buy these businesses during a downturn and effectively look at it and go, all right, well, what do we need to fix to undownturn it, right? And that's really the big question, because we have the case study, but everybody here goes through a point in time in business where things just aren't great. And you don't know what to do because what you've always done isn't working. And that's the hard part. That's the fact that most entrepreneurs are going to face at least once in your career. It's just, are you going to be the person that lets it kind of break you and you're done? Or are you going to figure it out, solve it, and find a way to kind of move past it? That's really the big question here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the reasons why it's essential to continue to learn more and get into those other social circles or those networking groups, or, read those books. But a lot of people definitely get in the weeds, and they kind of take their eye off the prize, so to speak, which is why, when the tools no longer work, they're often at a loss, and they're being in that very reactive cycle of, kind of grow, struggle, fail. And we kind of talked about launch and struggle and launch early on. But like, I mean, that, and so how do we start to learn from those things? And this is where like the Harvard Business Review is a great resource for those of you that don't know where to even start with some of that stuff. They're a phenomenal resource. You just go read some of those things. I mean, obviously you have access to us, the podcast, but you definitely want to make sure that you're addressing and always actively looking for a potential future limitation that could be pretty damaging to your business growth. If that's something you desire to do, or if you want to hang out at 135, which is what we help people do at Empowered, then obviously you want to find the appropriate resource that's going to help you cultivate the skills necessary to do that. So all that to say, there's a very specific acronym that, it sounds like it's pretty important for people to truly master. Steve, what do you got for
So
them?
profit per acquisition, like you mentioned earlier, PPA is my favorite business math formula that exists. And little backstory on this one, right? And it's funny, Russell Brunson, one of my mentors, it was always the people don't find the things valuable that you have until they know how you learned or you earned that knowledge, that thing, that nugget of information, right? Because if it was free to me, probably not as valuable and I throw it your way. But if I tell you it helped me move businesses to doing over $1 million a month, as well as a singular business pushing almost $100 million a year, now all of a sudden this thing that was created through going and battling a downturn is something that is valuable, and it actually helped
Mm-hmm.
get out of that downturn. But profit per acquisition is effectively, I'll call it an operational way to look at your business metrics, your KPIs, your whatever you call these indicators, these numbers that I look at my business on a regular basis. Now, traditionally in this world, we have so many Google Sheets, you have a CRM, you have a bunch of different things that show you a bunch of different data. I'm not saying that that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
You actually need that in order to move into profit per acquisition. But profit per acquisition distills all of your business metrics into three key numbers. And you and I can have a very logical, good conversation when we look at three pieces of data. When we have 40, it's kind of hard to start to really put all that together and for it to make sense and for us to have a non-emotional
Mm-hmm.
conversation. So those three key pieces of information is effectively the lifetime value of a client, how much they pay you and how long they stay with you, so to speak. Do they make one big lump sum payment? Do they pay you $500 a month forever? Like, what does that look like? But what is the lifetime value of a singular client? The next one is
Mm-hmm.
the cost to fulfill on your promise you made to that client. What are your operational costs? And then the last one is going to be your cost to acquire. So we have our lifetime value, however much they give you, then how much you spend fulfilling on your promise that you made to them monthly over the time of their lifespan with you, and then how much you spent to actually acquire them as a consumer, usually a one-time fee. And you equal all that out. So value minus acquisition minus fulfillment equals the total profit you get per client that you bring in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And the nice thing here is if you're like, hey, I want to make $1 million in profit, I'm like, awesome. That's great. We can now divide $1 million by the amount of profit you make per person. And I can turn around and say, here's how many people you need to hit $1 million. And you're going to go, okay, no problem. Or, whoa, that number's way too big. I don't want that business. Or, oh, easy. Like, yeah, I got this by myself without a team. Like, whatever it is, it starts to put like boundaries and it starts to build that container around what we're doing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
those three pieces of information are important because they start to it's a Monday, guys. I'm tired. They start to detect changes in your business. Here's a good example. Let's say the lifetime value of a consumer is $20,000 for 3 years. Steady, it's 19,000, 21,000, 20, 19,500, 18,700, 22,300, and it continues to do this because every single month it's always going to change a little bit. but we care about those averages a little bit. But then all of a sudden, we see it continue to trend down 20, 18, 17, 2, 16, 15. And after a year, now we're hanging out around $11,000 in lifetime value. Well, very clearly, one of two things is happening. People are either paying less or they're staying with you for less time. If you're you listening to this right now, think about the first questions that might come to your mind. For me, I go down the road of asking the business owner or the situation, well, are we charging less? Are we over discounting? Are we like, what are we doing to cause the price to go down? Or did our service start to suck? People aren't getting the results, something like that, and they're quitting sooner. Those are two buckets of questions that now you can go investigate. We have a direction. If your cost to acquire goes steadily $1,000, $1,000, $1,000, $1,000, all of a sudden it jumps up to $4,000 and it's hanging out at $4,000 and my cost to acquire 4x. Well, why? Are you spending that much more to get the same amount of people in your business? Or are you spending the same or more and getting less people into your business? So is it like a sales problem? Is it a marketing problem? Like what's going on there? Mm-hmm. And then the last one, cost to fulfill. Well, if that shoots up way high, are we spending more on operations? Did we hire a bunch of people? Did we deploy a bunch of new systems and tech that's costing us money? Or are we fulfilling on less clients? Because if we spend 10 grand, but we fulfill 100 people versus 10 people, it's obviously more expensive on the 10 people. Mm-hmm. So we now start to get these little questions, these bucket of questions that they don't answer the question, but it drives us in a direction depending upon what direction one of those three numbers go. And that was really the process. Let me see. This number went in this way. What logical question should I ask? Ask the question, go find the answer. Usually when you find the answer, you then come up with another question and you continue to repeat that process until there's no more questions to be asked and you have now identified the problem. Lifetime value going down. Okay, great. Are they spending less? No, we're selling them the exact same thing. In fact, we've incrementally increased our prices over time. Cool. It's not a charging thing. The only other thing is people are staying shorter amount of time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are. Okay, cool. Well, what were the numbers? Well, they used to stay for 4 years. Now they only stay for 18 months. Okay. Well, why? Well, I don't know. 3/4 of the team left or got fired 2 years ago. And now all of a sudden people are leaving. Oh, okay. Well, what are NPS scores looking like? Are people happy? Well, we don't do NPS anymore. We used to though. But before, when we stopped, the reason we stopped was because the data was getting worse and we didn't want to look at it anymore. Got it. Okay, so the core team that was creating success and lifetime value and keeping stickiness is now gone. You know your net promoter scores, how much people like your service, your business, were trending down, but you stopped doing that so you didn't have to look at it. So let's go send out an NPS survey and see who answers. Let's just try that and see. Oh, it comes back -40? Huh. You know, fulfillment on the promise you made is clearly subpar. So let's see what happened. You know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, tried to make things really, really efficient, tried to save some money, did all this stuff, fired some people, all the things on the back end, create more profit. And it was more profitable for like 3 or 4 months. And then the wheels fell off because now our service delivery was crap. We had the wrong people trying to deliver services, people that had no business jumping from the career that they once were in, managing a restaurant of employees that like, you know, McDonald's, so they're all like 12-year-old employees, is now leading the entire team and trying to drive specific outcomes for teammates and clients. And we're wondering why the business is failing. And those are literally the scenarios that can come up. And all it does is it takes all of these complex numbers and these, at the end of the day, you have a big data sheet of stuff. Which number's the most important? I have no idea. But I can tell you all three numbers on profit per acquisition are equally important and allow you to ask good questions. Eventually you get to where you're at, and now we know. So, but this was born actually when I was consulting for a brick and mortar weight loss and nutrition coaching franchise system. And everything was falling apart and they didn't know why. And they kept on trying to change this and change this. I was like, guys, the profitability per client we acquire is going down and down and down. They're like, oh, well, duh, 'cause we're not making profits. I'm like, I get it, but like, you got to look at it a different way and we'll know what we need to fix. And I could never get those corporate people to truly understand it. Meanwhile, I was leading a kind of a test of 15 locations all across the country. And on average, those 15 were outpacing every other location across the entire brand, which was about 170 other locations, by 4-1. And it came down to not because we were doing different things. We were looking at the numbers differently and asking questions differently. And that's how it was born. But that's literally the example of here's what's going on. And wow, we have a fulfillment issue, leads to lifetime value decline. Now all of a sudden people aren't as profitable. It's weird how that happens. It's crazy.
Weird.
But the thing is, if you're a sales and marketing guy, NPS for your fulfillment isn't necessarily the top of mind thing for you. So, when you go in business, like, listen, I've had times in businesses where things were not great. And what did I do? I just dug in and kept doing what I thought I was good at. And the problem didn't get better. Let me do more cardio to lose more weight. Keep going, right? Like, let me do that same thing. You know what? Maybe my body needs a break. I need to eat some more protein, go lift some weights, and increase my metabolism again. That might be a better bet to get to where I want to go. Nope. 4 hours of cardio a day. I'm going to do it. Same principle. You can't sell and market your way through a dead audience to fix your business woes if your fulfillment is absolute dog shit. So that's my real quick soapbox on PPA as you got me going.
Well, I think it's really essential for the audience. Like, this is obviously in the context of the uncertain nature that it is entrepreneurship. Like, there's never, it is this thing. It's all a big black box. We don't know what goes in, but we're hoping we know what comes out. And we try to control, just like a recipe, like the recipe might be different for people with different palates and different taste buds. So control what you can, but I think it's really essential that, and it's the same thing with coaching, is you collect some information. You need to take the time to look at the information, and then you need to generate what you want to investigate from there and what you're going to manipulate. And that's really the big framework here, is like, well, what is it that you need to investigate? If your business isn't growing, if you're not getting clients, how long are you going to continue to do the same thing? Which I will say that there is some merit to consistently showing up and executing against no change, right? There is that one day that something just randomly takes off. You hear it all the time. However, if you're not collecting information, if you're not looking at what can possibly change, and now you're 6 months in, it's going to be kind of a weird situation. But I think the average statistic is like the average online, or not even the average online, the average business isn't profitable for the first 2 years. And so when you turn around and people are entering the space and they're like, well, I'm going to get 10K in like 2 days. And and that was a big thing, I would say, probably 2-ish years ago. And then obviously, given the nature of 2025 and the geopolitics and the socioeconomic status of how things are evolving, like, there are other external influences that have definitely, created less disposable income on the behalf, like in the consumer segment. And so, businesses that are smart, and this goes back to earlier, like, if you're continuing to learn, you're looking around, you're shopping your competition, you're looking at and grounding things in sound business principles, like, the PPA model here, then you have a good decision-making boundary set well, okay, like let me see which one do I want to pull on, because you can't really pull on all of them at the same time, especially if you're a new business owner. So just to be clear, like pick one thing to change, see what happens, make some changes, see if that changes anything, and if it doesn't, then you need to pull on a different lever. Um, but frankly, I mean, honestly, I would just say go hire someone to consult with. It'll drastically decrease your learning curve, or you can come to one of our event stuff, like one of our workshops that we have. We actually have one coming up, I think, right, Steve?
Yeah, I think we're what, 3.5 weeks out. Two
Something
two
like that.
weeks,
We
two
try
and
to
a,
run
two and
one
a half
every
weeks.
month.
20, like the 28th of the month or whatever. I think it fires off.
There we go. So, yeah. So, I mean, if you're stuck and you have no idea what your PPA looks like, or, because we try to make them both coaching skill set wise relevant and business acumen relevant. And so, Steve, what are you talking about this month?
So this month we're really focusing on taking your marketing and converting that into actual sales and revenue generation. So we're talking a lot around
Mm-hmm.
your actual cost to acquire a consumer. We're not going to talk
Okay.
a lot about creating more attention. Obviously, that comes before it. What does that path look like? But now that we have some attention, what are the things we do in marketing? How do we layer components in? And how do we get people to effectively a sales opportunity? So defining your offer, what does that bonus stack really look like? Just making sure that you are prepared to convert people into whatever it is you're trying to help them with and what you're trying to sell them.
Got it. So going back to the PPA, it sounds like you got that cost to acquire thing going on this workshop. For those of you that have, for the coaching side of the house, I mean, while we're talking about it, might as well just give the details. I've written 3 nutrition certifications, so we are launching a 4th updated version. And in fact, if your companies that you're buying these credentials from, if they're not updating their stuff every 3-ish years, they're going to fall behind, and the things they talk about might not necessarily be the most updated. And so some things that you want to make sure that you're doing is you're asking those companies, hey, what are the learning outcomes? What are the coaching outcomes? Like, what are your people that buy your certification getting from that? And if they can't answer, I would frankly not buy it. I think that it's just, they might be trying to do some weird shit with my experience in the industry. So we are launching another nutrition certification. We're super excited about it. But it's probably going to be about 50% upgraded from the last one that I wrote and launched like 4 years ago now, Steve. 3 years ago.
22. So three years ago.
22. Yeah, so 3 years ago. So yeah, that's the coaching segment for this month. Next month, that I think it's going to be fitness, or actually I think it's psychology next month. So, I mean, we always have different things coming up. And if you feel stuck in any way, like please, please, please reach out. Because it really is a shitty feeling to be, feeling like you're overwhelmed, you're floundering. And at the end of the day, you've spent too much time being overwhelmed when you just want to give up. And we need good coaches in the space, which is why we do the stuff that we do. Because it really does, rising tide lifts all boats. And that's why all our stuff is dirt cheap. And, why we do, I mean, fuck, half of it, most of it for free.
Highly valuable, Andrew, not dirt cheap. Highly valuable.
I mean, hey, listen, we try to make it as accessible as possible.
Correct.
And so there is something, you're not going to pay $2,000 for a cert with us. It's just kind of a weird thing. But all that to say, if you're stuck, overwhelmed, feel lost, reach out. We'll get you a seat in the upcoming weekend, or if it's not this month, then it's in the future. Hopefully we're still doing these, but we do have a commitment across the next 12 months for 2025 to do one event every month, just to make sure that we're making ourselves accessible to the people that really need the help. So we hope to see you guys there.
You mentioned the idea of, ask for help, hire somebody, whatever the case may be. And, the story here, I opened my first business in 2009. I became a manager in my first business in 2000 and I'm starting to get old. 6. So 19 years ago. And for me now, so profit per acquisition, I just explained this to you, the 3 numbers, and conceptually you're probably like, all right, I get it. But you go try to do it in your business. You're like, I have no idea what's going on. You give me 15 minutes to ask you questions and understand your business. And if it's complex and you got multiple things going on, 30 minutes on the high end. Outside of that, I will give you the top 3 things you need to go fix in order to get your business to go back to where it needs to go. You're probably going to know one of them. You just haven't taken the action yet because it's hard, or it's not the thing you love the most, or whatever. The other 2 probably come as a surprise. And it's just, I never really thought about it that way, or I didn't do this thing or some version thereof. And it happens. I mean,
Yeah.
the people I get to coach today are doing $10 million a year in top line revenue. We have a conversation once a month around what do we need to focus on. And it's always an enlightening conversation, literally once a month. And we've been doing this. We do these things now every single quarter, leadership meeting, sit down, have big conversations. And of the 2-3 focus points, one or two usually stays the same or very similar. And then there's always a new one that enters. And it's like, hey, we need to get some attention over here and focus. So it is always changing and evolving, but within 30 minutes can identify the thing. Now it's about building the plan and just taking action on the plan. And
that part changes so much because the industry, the variables, the people, the resources allocation, you know, it just, that's where the magic really comes in. It's like, here, you're fucked up here. But at the end of the day, like, but the so what should always be the question of like, how do you move that forward? And I love the fact that it's just like you mentioned that there's always a couple surprises, and we know that there's something called a blind spot when it comes to human behavior, of things that you just like have this epiphany and you're like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea. And you want to, at the end of the day, try to minimize as many epiphanies as you have by actively seeking them out, by getting people that have significantly more experience and or knowledge in those domains, because then that's where you become the person that ultimately turns around and gets to lend value to your peers and the people that are starting. And that's really where we want to get to, is that we build such great coaches and great businesses that those people then turn around and are able to do something similar for their own people, who then turn around. And that's really how we raise the standard and kind of rising tides lifts all boats for the industry. So that's the game that we're playing, and we're super excited to get to play with.
Yeah. And that's, you know, when we talk about like our events and when we do these things, we talk about the principles and the theories for sure, right? Because we want you to have an underlying kind of understanding of the things that we're going through. Some are stuff that, quote unquote, we've invented when we changed the game. And, you know, but that said, like the profit per acquisition and those 3 numbers, that's not brand new. It's a different way of looking at it and articulating a different way. I am the first person who has ever done profit per acquisition method, formula, however we want to talk about it. But everybody's talked about what my customer acquisition costs are for years. So it's just a different way. So it's not necessarily new, but it is a way to relate it to your business. So, but we want you to understand that principle, that foundational thing. So you are now empowered with that information to take it and apply it in different aspects of your business. Then we actually break down what the tactical execution thing is. Because imagine like you can come sit in a room with us and we sit there, or you watch a course of ours, like 20 to 30 hours of content. And it's just this, hey, you could do one of these million things. Well, which one should I do? Because then on the other side of that, guess how hard it is to take action and actually make the change you want. It's like, these things are great in theory. It's fun. You get me pumped up when we talk about it. It's great. But I don't actually know what I'm going to do for the next 90 days to change my problem that I currently came to you with. So we want you to have the language, the understanding, the base level, the foundational component of what's going on. But we also desire you to have, here's the action plan to go accomplish the thing that you care to accomplish, you came to us with. And those are always going to be the outcomes of what we teach, specifically our in-person stuff. But also when you come into Empowered, we break those down. And that's where we will literally do a full training on profit per acquisition, but give you a tracker that you can leverage in your business as well. And that's the stuff that starts to make the change for you.
100%. So all that to say, like, we're here, we care. We'll keep doing this stuff for as long as, I mean, until we get run over or, you know, plane engine goes out or something, but God forbid. But yeah, you know, in the meantime, it really means a lot to us. If you can help us share the message, obviously, like, subscribe, make sure you're staying up to date on the podcast. And please, like, if you do know of anyone that is struggling to build their business, share this episode with them, because this might be something that helps them gain some insights and helps them start to ask better questions. And realistically, if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you're a coach or you're someone that is a savvy consumer, and maybe you just love us. I don't know. But at the end of the day, like if you think any of the stuff that we talk about is valuable, please share that with someone, because it really does make a huge difference for us to continue knowing what people are really valuing and what we probably want to focus more on. So until then, if you got any questions, where should they reach out to us, Steve?
The social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, going to be great. Leave a comment below. Throw us an email if you want. Either way, we'll find it. We'll see it. Create some content around the things that you want.
There we go. All right. Stay tuned for more details on the upcoming events in February. And until then, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.